So the next thing I wanted to talk about is telepathy, because these are very easy techniques to learn, uh, according to how you've trained yourself so far. If you haven't like been that great in mathematics, and you haven't been that great in literature, you're not going to be so great in these fields. But this is something I also wanted to talk about, was telepathy. Uh, So telepathy works a little bit like this. If you want to talk to somebody in their head and send it out to the universe, and hopefully they get it, it works a little bit like this. You imagine a person, right? You imagine how they act. You imagine how they feel. You imagining how they act and how they feel is according to their key signature. That's what I talked about in my last two videos. If you can imagine how they act and how they feel, then the next step in that is the step of telepathy. It's basically just like this. You imagine the person. You lock onto their key signature, their emotional signature. You lock onto how they feel and basically feel out what they would say to you in a certain situation according to whatever you're talking about. You imagine in your mind that they're talking to you according to how you remember the person being and how you remember the person acting, and you just talk to them, right? You just talk to them based off of what you remember them saying and how you remember them acting and all that kind of stuff. It's a very advanced technique according to the future prediction ability, right? So you're just taking that to the next step. You're imagining in your head a person who you can talk back and forth to. And amazingly, by just imagining this person and talking back and forth between this person, you can actually send messages to this person. But you have to be really good at knowing how the person feels, and you have to be really good at knowing how they will act in the future. If you can get those two steps down, then you can literally talk to somebody in your mind, and you can literally relay information to them based off of this technique. It's like, I guess they like to call it a cell phone, because you're basically calling somebody with your mind, right? And I know a lot of people aren't going to believe this shit because it's very abstract, but that's the basics of how to talk to somebody in your mind, how to be a telepath and send information their way based off of information that you have. So when I was first exploring this technique, because it was something that I invented personally, I had a very deep connection with the person that I was talking to. They were so ingrained in my mind that I could imagine how they would speak to me if they were speaking to me. I could imagine the things that they would say next, after, like based off of it. It almost feels like you're having a conversation with yourself, but at a different emotional resignation. Like you're singling out a single person to talk to, and with this singling them out, you can relay information to them depending on how well you know the person. If you don't know the person that well, then you're not going to be able to talk to them. But if you know the person so well in your heart, like you've studied how they act, and what they would say to you if you said one thing, then you're basically going to come across the conclusion that you can talk to this person in their head, and they will receive the information that you're getting. It's just a matter of understanding the person well enough to know what they'll say next after what you tell them, you know? Like, what's an example? Well, like when I first did it in real life, this isn't how I attained this skill, but when I first did it in real life, I was imagining my girlfriend. And suddenly I was able to hear things in my head about their feedback according to what was going on in their heads based off of what was going on in my head. And we've been talking ever since. I don't use this skill very often because I prefer like face-to-face intimacy more than I prefer talking to somebody in my head. But I can definitely tell you that if you use this technique properly, you will be able to communicate your thoughts to other people. Right. So that was something I wanted to talk about today, just based off of what we're talking about today, because we're talking all about psychic stuff and whatnot. And that's how I learned to communicate with people that I haven't been in communication with in a long time, and that I don't have their phone numbers. It's basically like learning their phone numbers, right? Because they all have different key signatures, and based off of their key signatures, they're going to say different things back to you. So if you can learn this one simple skill, it's like, because when you become a precog, you're already reading minds. But when you master this skill of being able to talk to people in your head, it's like a different level of mind reading, right? Where you can actually like talk to the person, and you can actually say things to them, and they will correlate that information in real life. They'll like, you imagine them saying a certain thing, they'll actually get the message if you know their phone number right, and they'll start acting a different way based off of what you tell them, you know? It's just a little skill that I picked up, and I guess I'll talk about it more in the next video. Peace.